Hello, Team Dream. See what I've done there? Changed that. Well, don't worry about it. Welcome to another episode of The Good, The Bad, and The Rugby. Alex Payne isn't here. Tyndall isn't here. So it's just me and you, listener. So first of all, I've got a tour coming up, Sex, Tries and Videotapes. 15 dates, starts in March. You can get tickets at www.jameshaskell.com. Now we've got that out of the way. I have actually called in a couple of GBR big guns. Now I was going to set a bat signal, but I put the cock signal up and Benjamin Kayser turned up. And I put a job centre number up and need some cash, and Jonathan Fox turned up. Lads, how are we? Ben, are you well?
I'm loving how Shira, the producer, was really worried that Tinds and Alex weren't here. You are loving this. You're made for this, mate.
They've honestly been holding me back. They've been like a millstone round my neck, because we could have gone global. Well, either gone global or got cancelled way quicker than we are, because ultimately the thing with Good Bad Rugby is it's going to end like Thelma and Louise. We're going to go off a cliff, screaming, on fire, lawsuits, criminal damage. But we could do it way faster, or we could go global.
It's a fine balance.
It is a fine balance. Alex is a real straight shooter. Tins' day breathing is... that, I reckon we lose a lot of listeners because of the daft breath Vader. Right, first things first. We're going to get into some details, but what have you been up to, Foxy? Are you well?
Yeah, not bad. Ducking and diving.
You got your tin hat on?
Ready to go. Yeah, it's been turbulent week, to say the least, I got to say. But I'm all right. Sat here right now, but I'm starting to sweat already, just the thought about
Jonathan
it.
Fox, strapped for cash, Wales Online say.
Already
Comes
there.
to London for new prospects. Because, first of all, right, Alex lets you get away with like the media handbook.
Yeah.
And your straight answers.
Yeah, you're going to call me out.
I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Right? And honestly, you're not in the mix at the moment.
Yeah.
And they're talking about cutting players and cutting stuff. You look a bit like Deadwood these days, right? You're on holiday every other week. So we're going to get some... You're going to say your actual opinion today, yeah?
Well, as best I can, yeah.
Right, okay. Well, let me explain to everyone what's been going on, if you haven't followed it. It's been another quiet week in the world of rugby. Or is it just me? Every time it feels like we take a breath, we come back and the world's burning. I just don't get my head around it. Welsh Rugby is at war with itself. The board are fighting with the players who have threatened not to play against England this weekend. There's been rumblings on all this matter before Christmas, but last week the board said there was no room for negotiation, which led to the furious response from the players' body and their threat to strike. If you've managed to miss the detail, or you just haven't sat down to read more than the headlines, in essence, the WRU and 4 professional regions are yet to rubber stamp a new financial deal for Welsh Rugby, which will last the next 6 years. Until that is rubber stamped, the regions can't budget and therefore can't negotiate new contracts with players. So if you are a player and your contract's up at the end of this season, you don't know if you'll have one for the next year. And if you do have a contract, you don't know what pay cut you'll have to take, because this new deal will see a fall in salaries for Welsh rugby players. Top-end contracts will fall from 400 grand to 280,000 per year, which is a huge decrease. As an aside, why was I playing in England when you lot own 400 grand?
You chose the red rose, didn't you?
Well, I would have chosen anything if I knew it's a 400 grand. You must be gutted, honestly. Or is they going to cut you down to 400 from 800?
The negotiations are ongoing
I
currently.
bet they are. Bet they are. Jonathan Davies owes 800 grand. Wales Online. Sorry. Anyway, back to serious stuff. Strike action is a last resort, which was what Alwyn Jones has said. But the fact players have put it on the table at all shows you just how serious this situation is. This is bigger than the Wales playing squad. The players who are threatened to strike are doing so on behalf of all of the professional Welsh players in the valleys. Does that sum it up, or just give us your version of how you're seeing this?
Yeah, it does sum it up very well, eloquently done. I have to say. The main issue is, I think, for years, Welsh players, we felt that we've never really been listened to or had a voice with the powers that be. In 2019, during COVID, we wanted our Players Association to be on the PRB, which is the Professional Rugby Board, I think it's called, just for us to understand what's going on and know where the lie of the land is with Welsh Rugby. So nothing's then sprung up against us like these new contracts that they've done. So like there's been huge frustration, and essentially,
Did you get that? Did they get on the board or not?
No. So that's one of the things that we want, and I think of late Players Associations has had more of a voice, but I think an actual seat at the table when these meetings go ahead, players would be happy with that, because it's not misconstrued, or there's no all details are made available to the players. So essentially, like, it's a number of boys who are out of contract in all 4 regions are currently playing, been asking to compete every week, and don't have that security or knowing whether or not they have a job next year. And it's getting to the point in the stage that it's scary for them. I think a few of the boys might have picked bumps on the weekend and are out of contract, and that's not fair, not knowing what the plan is for them and their futures. So that was basically that's what it. Rugby at the moment, COVID has like hit it for 6, and this is the union and the regions trying to almost push a reset button and find a way to like make it through the next few years, to then hopefully then build back up again. So the proposal they sprung on us with this new different fixed variable contracts. It was so late in the day, we just felt probably a bit not ambushed. No, I'm not saying that. We just felt that we
just did. Though.
Yeah, I know, and it's gonna that is gonna be the headline word, I guarantee you. But no, I feel that it's just it could have been done a lot better, like subtly, like just giving it right. This is what we're thinking, and then just slowly keep us in the loop of what they're trying to do, and we can then give our opinions and what we feel. And there's a lot of things that over the years that players haven't been happy with, and hopefully the negotiations coming this week now, that we can get a few things that we actually want. And it's great to see that the boys in the national squad are sticking up for the whole playing population in Wales, but it's extremely sad that they have to do that in a Wales v England week, it's just clean off.
Yeah.
Like the fact that we're going up against one of our oldest enemies, and the boys have to consider this in a test week.
Just to put you at ease a little bit for the atmosphere. Number one, I really appreciate you coming to actually share all of this, because none of us know anything about it, and it's fantastic to have it from the horse's mouth. But the reality is that your first sentence was, we've been fighting for the players to actually be around the table when the discussions are being made. Yeah. That is not the case in Wales, but it's definitely not the case in France. It hasn't been the case enough in England. So it's a world problem, right? It's not just you. So you can feel relaxed about it. I don't think the Welsh players have done anything wrong basically the last couple of years. The reality is that their voice has never been heard. The players' voice has never been heard enough. Yeah. Whether it's to change the rules, as the playing rules, whereas to change the financial rules, whether it's to play, even to change the championship times. I mean, look, I'll give you a simple example. You've been in France. You saw how it was rock and roll. You would play the Saturday night at 9 p.m. and the week after, like, oh, by the way, we've got a new slot. You're going to play the Sunday at 12. 12, so midday, yeah? That means that 8:15 you're eating chicken and pasta. They never even ask the players. If you tell the players, look, it's good for the audience, good for the TV rights, good to promote the game, fair enough, yeah, we'll do it, no problem. It's a win-win situation. If you tell us like little kids, so that's why I know the term ambush you didn't like, but it's a bit, you're backed up in the corner, and you don't even have a real, it's almost like a patronizing conversation. You better do this, you have to do this. No, sit down like grown men and actually, discuss those things. So I basically, your problem is a European problem, is a world rugby problem, in the sense that the player's voice has definitely not been heard enough.
And I think obviously the point was made about the reducing salary, but I think you do have a short career and you have to make as much money as you can. But fundamentally, it's not about the money. It's about player welfare and job security. Like the fact that some boys are coming up to March and they don't know whether they have a job in a few months' time. It's alarming and it's scary, and that's why, as a players' association, the boys are making a bit of a stand now, and the support and the public. I think that's been great. They haven't thought like, you greedy bastards trying to get more money. They've actually seen that, right. We want to make sure that players have, like I said, I'm saying the same word, security, and clarity on where they are.
And players who 2 years ago accepted to get some pay cuts, huh?
Yeah.
So it's never made an effort. The sums that you're talking about, there's 40% tax on it. So there's loads of things that need to be taken in consideration. And I think you can never justify when it's done on a regional way. It's one thing. When it's before an England-Wales game that they've been fighting all their lives to actually play, and they know there's going to be kids in the stands who can't wait to see the national team play. So when I think Alwyn Jones, when he comes up in the media, he knows all that, right? Yeah. He's done enough blood and sweat for the jersey. He knows what everything represents. He knows how particular this week is and how. But that's what they're trying to strike. We're putting our biggest card on the table here. This is how messed up the situation is. This is how hurt we are. This is how disrespected we are, to the point where if it means our only solution is to question the way we would play England, which has been their dream for their entire lives, then this is just to say, look, this is a wake-up call. It's not just a matter of being greedy, like you said, a few bucks more, a few bucks less. This is a matter of survival in the sense that player welfare, mental health balance, standing up for what we believe in, and the future of Welsh rugby in general.
Because it's just about the generations to come as well. Like this could be, we could be in a financial, not crisis, but like tough times in rugby for the next 5-6 years. So you've got like the next crop of youngsters coming in, and we just want to make sure that they're in a safe place, knowing what they can still earn a living and live out their dreams as professional rugby players.
To just give you a bit of context, I mean, you guys know, but the listeners at home, obviously this is the latest twist in a turbulent kind of period for Welsh rugby. Just weeks after the resign of the WR. Used chief executive over allegations of sexism, misogyny, and racism in the game's governing body. So that's not ideal. What you were talking about with the PRB as well, and trying to get a representation on it. Now, Ben, everything you say, I echo wholeheartedly. It's appalling that the players are not represented in any way in any of these big decision-making things. One thing I just want to get clear is, because the way I'm reading it, is that they made these decisions. So they sat in a room, the PRB, they made this decision. And the reason actually they did this is, and this is what the chair, Malcolm Wall, said, this is their version of what the reason they're doing stuff is. They said the new agreement offers a complete funding package to the professional game in Wales, but it does come with financial limitations, which will be directly affecting salary negotiations. The cold facts are that the WRU and clubs have been paying salaries that their businesses cannot afford, so the new agreement establishes a new framework for contract negotiations. Now, obviously, like in any area of life, you can't magic up money that isn't there. You can't ask clubs to pay money they don't have. However, I think what's concerned and why everyone is upset is that these decisions were made without discussing anything, and then you were told, we've got no room to negotiate, take it or leave it. Is that right? That's what really kind of got people upset with. They sort of didn't even just drip feed it in. Someone just announced and went, by the way, this is now happening, take it or leave it.
Yeah, they wanted to bring in a standard contract and change the way, instead of like a fixed rate, go to a fixed variable. And as players, like, we weren't particularly happy with like the immediate change because we were consulted on it quite late, and I think it's been a work in progress for a while, and the system that they came up with just seems a bit clunky and not really clear on they've got tiers and percentages differences for win bonuses and match fees and appearances, and it just seems really messy and hard to really grasp. And I think as players in the moment, because it's so late in the day, it's like, right, can't we just almost push it to next year just to try and get through this year, and we can really like knuckle it down? Because I think the principle of performing well, getting bonuses, I quite like. I agree. I think if you perform well, and you're playing week in, week out, and there's a bonus system, I think it's a good model. But it's the fact that it doesn't seem like
there's no clarity over exactly how it would operate.
Yeah, and that's what's alarming, because we've just been told this is the system, and boys haven't been. Well, that's not.
Talking about clarity, how much access did you actually have to the numbers, to the books, to the financial situation? Is it just, it's poor, we can't afford to, okay, that's one sentence. How much explanation, did you have a sit down with the financial institution of Welsh Rugby and be like, right, you've got 6 hours to ask every single question. How much did the concerts bring in? What has been the situation, not in the last 6 months? What were we pre-COVID? You know, has there been governance mistake? Well, everybody can make mistake, right? But at least own up to them and share the real, have full transparency on the exact situation.
I can't comment because I'm not on the WRPA board, so I don't know if some of the boys have seen that, been privy to that information. But so I don't want to speculate. But you'd like to think that having a seat on the PRB would allow that more.
100%.
And you know, if our representatives then see the situation that we're in, and like, you know, when the regions and the union came to the players during COVID and, you know, needed us to take a 25% cut for 15 months, you know, players obviously weren't happy with it, but we understood and we came round to it in the end.
If you got injured this week, you did a cruciate or something like that, or you got a thing, or you got a concussion, you'd be like, well, I'm not even sure I'm going to be able to get through the rehab or get the medical bills. I understand. I mean, how is it affecting you? Because I mean, I know we joked about you. You know, you got more money than sense, but you probably got a helicopter down here. But what on a genuine, serious thing, like, how does it affect you? Because I, you know, when we've been involved, we'll come onto it later. We've both had our sort of fair share of stuff. I took WAS on strike, and I know it can become quite grinding because you want to just be a player and focus on playing. You don't want to. You're not a politician.
No.
But equally, if people aren't going to be professional, you have to take a stand, because if you don't take a stand, no one will.
Yeah. Look, I think being down with the Scarlets and being captain of the club, it's I think, I don't know, it's a bit of a, like, I don't think news travels as quickly down west, and I think the boys have been fantastic. You know, they've just got their heads down and knuckle down, and you know, there are conversations in between training and whatnot, but I think the focus on playing, you know, I can't say how well they've done, and the club have been really transparent with us, like giving us any updates possible. But like, it's just the delay in, you know, not being able to guarantee a contract. They might say, yeah, we want to keep you, which is a good heads up.
Yeah.
But you can't, you know, your electricity doesn't get paid by we want to keep you.
No.
So yeah, look, and the club's hands are tied as well until the agreement's passed. So it's just almost like a vicious circle. But like the boys down with the Scarlets have been great. Their attitude's been great. But you can imagine there's been some thoughts away from training.
Yes.
Like, that's almost like an escape, 100%. Being a training with the boys.
Yeah.
Because we're so fortunate with the atmosphere that we have as professional rugby players. Like, you know, you can have banter, and you know, you're doing something that you've loved doing since you were a kid, and you know, it's a release. So you know, I'm sure boys who are out the contract are in, you know, stressful, especially that injury thing. You know, like you said, like, you know, someone does something bad on a weekend, then, you know, they're screwed then, obviously. You know, you'd like...
Well, it's also, I think, always affects, it's the injured, the bin juice, the squad members, you know, and I think fair play that the top boys are striking. I mean, who... there's some interesting comments on that Gatland makes about the WRPA, which I'll come on to. But who with your knowledge, who is fighting the fight for you lads? Who is are the WRPA ones standing up, or you got players? I mean, is Alman Jones you know, tin hat on, bayonet fixed, going into, you know, holding people hostage, or who's running the show?
I think, you know, the WRPA has, when I first started, wasn't much of an entity, but now it has grown, and I think with the backing of the players and, you know, key members over the years being on that board, has grown to a stronger force. And you know, you probably do look at like the senior boys, in and around that Welsh squad, who have made the decisions, weighed up everything, and, you know, probably consulted a lot with the young boys as well to put them at ease. Because if, you know, some of the, you know, if you're 21, 22 in your first Welsh camp, and you're being told, right, we're striking next week, you're like, hang on, I'm never going to play for Wales again. Yeah. So I think I imagine those senior boys have been excellent guiding them, just explaining the scenario and the situation that we're currently in.
So Gatland has had some pretty scathing comments on the WRPA. he's come out and said, I'm in complete support of the players in terms of the WRPA, which to me in my time here has been incredibly weak as an organisation. Gatland added, I've stressed on a number of occasions to the players that they need to be stronger, they need to have more voices, they need to be around the table from a consultation point of view. From that regard, I think it's a huge positive for the players and the relationship with the union going forward, because they need to be part of all the discussions that take place. I'm sure the players, like us, would like things to be resolved very quickly. I mean, you know, I've had that in my time with the kind of the RPA and stuff. You know, Damien Hopley's been brilliant when he was in charge. People, you know, have helped a lot of people. I've never understood how an organisation that can be partly funded by a union have ability to negotiate from a point of strength and can have the teeth that are required. You know, Ellis Genge wanted to set up an independent body. A player's epoch is what he called it, because he wanted it to be player-led with sharp businessmen that wasn't getting funded from the one body that you're trying to negotiate with. So essentially, you guys are saying there was a bit of an entity, but just wasn't really pushing the agenda. Are they now in place? You know, are they? You know, if you're going to get representative of the RPA, are you going to be concerned? Sorry, WRPA. Are you going to be concerned if you're the Welsh Union? You're just going to go, come on, chaps.
I think when I first started playing, they'd probably laugh at it.
Yeah.
I think boys were happy with their 20% off Nando's.
Yeah. Like, how funny is that? That's the problem with a lot of the players. I said it before. You know, when they're focused on playing and they're so self-interested, honestly, you can mesmerise them with a free Nando's. You know, £10 off a car. You know, of your mobile phone per month, and they just let everything slide. And you're like, lads, we need to strike. The season's been extended. Yeah, we're probably just going to focus on this week's game, and we're not going to. That's why I admire the French, Ben, because you know they I mean, in our time in Stade Francais, we had something similar, but the French aren't shy in coming forward with what they want. Is that right?
We love striking.
You love striking, yeah. And you guys do it so. Nobody does a riot or a blockade like the French. Like, mate, they wanted to reduce the retirement age. People are fucking burning Paris to the ground. Like, it's mad.
No, look, it's exactly what you said. How much motivation can you give to the players, or how much agreement can you get with 20% off Nando's? Which means, if you actually get them a bit of transparency, a bit of openness prior to that, not back it on, oh, we shared it with two guys, you need to report to the entire international, player base, then yeah, get them times. And there's guys who could come around it, but like literally they would ask simple questions. What am I going to do about my mortgage? You know, how can I do this? How can I support? What would happen? Just answers. If I do my ACL, touch wood, in March, what happens to me in September if I'm out of contract? Maybe there are solutions. Maybe there's extra insurance that you can take. But all those questions can't be answered because, let's face it, it's a big-ass problem, and you can't ask the players to play, to train, to support the family, and to take those massive decisions with zero visibility on what's happening. Look, France, definitely not an example in terms of well-organized, well-oiled, well-represented, but we were not afraid of taking big actions. And you were the heartbeat of it, because Stade Francais we were excellent at this because we were just special. It was all about the revolution all the time, right? Yeah. And so it was all about, look, rugby, you can turn it, twist it into whatever you want. If you don't have 15 players on the pitch, you don't have a game, you don't have a sport. So it was their striking action. And twice it happened at Stade Francais. They were striking all the way in the change room. Like, boys, if we don't get this phone call, we're not stepping on the field. Oh. And they took it to the arm wrestle of it was early 2000s. Mathieu Blin and all those guys were leading the charge of this, and they were in the hallway. If we don't get the phone call, it's about holidays. It's about Christmas holidays. Like we're not taking the field. And they got the phone call, right, we'll play, poof, and just went. The funniness about it. Exactly. Everybody in the change room, really? Yes, okay, we go. The funniness about it is that Serge Simon, who was a former prop from Stade Francais, quite a crazy guy, but really funny, was head of Proval, the equivalent of the RPA. And he was leading the charge. He was Che Guevara. He really wanted to do revolution everywhere. You know, three bracelets, seven diamond rings, and really, really funny dude. And he would always tell that, you know, boys, it's the powers in the players. You can strike this, strike that. He was always the one throwing the word of striking. And when it was about, because we were centrally contracted with the clubs, and the federation would pay the clubs for the number of days that you were out, and you get your bonuses by the French team. So when it was about negotiating those packages about the bonuses, the winning bonuses in France, because that's mainly what it is, we're not like England, we're not guaranteed, you know.
No, win, lose or draw.
Absolutely.
You won't strike there.
And he was the one coming, he was the one saying, look, in the end, if they really don't want to give it to you, you can strike. 3 years later, he's vice president of the federation, tied up, suited up, and he's got a tie all the way here. Braces are gone, the rings are gone. You know, he's pintoed back, whatever. Che Guevara, who is that dude? No. Look, it's all about law and order. We gotta be straight. We gotta be good. He's got a business card, you know, hanging here.
It's always the way.
It's completely different. So in France, look, we keep it spicy, we keep it lively, but we're definitely not perfect.
There's nothing better when the poacher turned gamekeeper, the person who, you know, like when you get the worst, you know, the biggest proponent of foul play on the field, and then suddenly the citing officer. You're like, come on. You know, I always find that astounding. But actually, when I look back at my career, like I don't strike myself as like a trade unionist. I'm pretty much out for myself, but I'm always aggrieved when I think the greater good has been affected. Yeah. You know, we had it in Stade Francais. I remember, you know, came in a meeting, my French wasn't very good. I was like, fucking hell, Ben, what are they saying? What are they saying? You know, we walked into a meeting and essentially they were asking us to take a pay cut or refund money. And, you know, you're like, look, you can't just put that on us. You've got to explain it to us. Exactly what Ben said. Where's the finances? Why have we got to pay for the shortfall of incompetence or mismanagement or whatever it is? We've got no vision.
What club in the last 2 years where there was disagreements over players not accepting a pay cut because of the pandemic? When everybody understood it,
yes.
When it was loud and clear, look, this is a shitty situation. We're on the verge of everybody collapsing. I haven't heard a club where there was some real problems. No. There were some tensions, yes. There were some problems. There's also some clubs who were actually very proud of saying we have 0 pay cuts, like Agen in France, because they were in 2nd division and they weren't paying much. It was a way of saying we don't overspend, okay? Yeah. But so, exactly like you said, when the shit really hits the fan, I think they've proven in the last couple of years they're capable of taking decisions if they understand all the facts and if all the pieces of the puzzle on the table.
The only part there was ever a problem is again the way that the clubs do things, and I've said it a million times on this podcast. Is rugby is not as professional as it thinks it is because it acts in a way that is just you just wouldn't accept in any other walk of life. You wouldn't be able to do this as a big company. You just wouldn't be able to act like this. And the boys had problems in the Premiership where they turned around and said to them, "Here's a piece of paper. You're taking a pay cut. Sign it." And they're like, what do you mean? What's this about? And there was no explanation. The clubs where it was more successful, they came in and said, listen, guys, here's what we've lost. Here's where we're going to lose. You know, we don't have to, but if you don't, we're going to put us under a bit of pressure. Most rugby players and sports are good people. They want to agree. And I don't think anyone in your camp is trying to say they don't want to help and they don't understand there is a deficit. It's much more probably the mechanics of how the thing's been dealt with than anything else, isn't it?
Exactly that. Like you said, it's like, right, you go through the process, right, how we got to here and show where, you know, the money's gone from COVID, you know, attendance is down in regions or whatever. Like they can say, right, this is why we need to do this. And this is the system that we want to take forward. And I'm sure over time and explanation, boys will be able to process that, go away and have, obviously question it and see if they can improve it. But like you said, rugby people are normally good people and will understand, and it essentially is about the game, not personal improvement in the situation. Like, you know, we understand, like, I think in rugby, when you play for a club for a number of years, you have an affiliation, you have a bond with that club, and you don't want to see something that you're proud of representing be on his arse. And, you know, I think you know, rugby in Wales has probably got to a head where they can't just keep spending, but they need, you know, it's sad that it's got to this stage where we've been, you know, it's almost like pushed on us about, and then boys still don't know what the score is.
If there's we were speaking about it before we started. There's also this idea of the 60 cap rule. What I feel in what you're saying is that it's extremely one-dimensional. There's a problem. The only solution is to cut the wedge of all the players. There's never an idea of saying, right, what other solutions are we going to find? Yeah. Where are we going to find some extra either revenue or some extra cuts that we can make? Yeah. Or there's a clever solution, right? We're going to lower a little bit that 60 cap rule to 40. We will allow another 10 players who can release a ton of cash to actually get paid more abroad, but we will be flexible, hybrid. We'll see for 2-3 years if it works. Yeah. And as long as they come back for Six Nations, the fermented test, which all the players love to do anyway, then we will be happy. I think that's what's missing in this whole jigsaw, is that there's only one solution. There's a huge problem with multiple of reasons, and the consequences is just the one.
Yeah. I think that's one of the big things that the boys are pushing for, is this 60 cap rule, because to get 60 caps, you have to be on top of your game for a number of years. And if they do drop it to 40, 30, or scrap it altogether, if you're going to have a closed market in Wales with salaries, then allow boys who have, reached a certain amount of caps or see what the open competitive market is abroad, and allow them to earn money and be available then for Six Nations games. And you might find that boys want to come back to Wales, because when I was in France, I found that going back and forth in the Six Nations, I wasn't playing well for either, like Claremont or Wales, because I was travelling back and forth. I was all over the shop, and I was like, right, when I came to the end of my Claremont career, my decision was I want to be in the best possible place for my Welsh career. Although I loved every minute I was in Claremont, I wanted to play for Wales as much as I can. Yeah. So I decided to come back to Wales. And I already had 60 caps. So it wasn't, you might find that boys go, actually, the grass isn't greener, but like allow that opportunity instead of, again, like you said, being backed into that corner.
But even some guys who are on 150, if they get 180, 190 to go abroad, they'll be like, "Why? Listen, 40K to move my entire family, relocate, be away from my in-laws or whatever. Maybe it's not worth it." But at least you give them the option.
And then you miss the fourth international. That could be,
of course,
there's a cap and more cash as well. So you then add up then, and you go, right, actually, being in Wales is good for me. Or I am going to take my rugby elsewhere and back myself to that I'm playing well enough that I can go back and forth. So it's, I think, a bit of flexibility elsewhere. If you're going to say, right, this is the funding model that we've got for the next 6 years, and it's going to be tight, and there are going to be cuts, allow players then to, dip their foot in the water elsewhere and see what they can do.
Why wouldn't they? To be honest,
I mean, I don't understand. But if they took that away, how bad a position would Welsh Rugby be in? If they said, if there was no 60 cap and you could just go off and do what you need,
I don't know.
Do you think it'd be a mass exodus? Because obviously we've talked about a long time about the regions, and look, this is not for you to say. This is what I've heard, and I only know it kind of anecdotally. But obviously, I know the regions they were very passionate, and there's infighting all over the place. Very difficult to get a uniform decision when they were going to merge the Ospreys. Yeah. There's all these kind of moments. Again, that wasn't discussed. People found out about that halfway through.
Well, that was during a Grand Slam run. We're going up the week we play Scotland. I think me and Ken on the Monday were called in to see the chairman of the Scarlet. He said, right, this is happening. It's been signed off. We got a meeting in 10 minutes. We're going to sign it off. And me and Ken were okay.
Merge between Scarlets and Ospreys.
And and literally...
That's Stade Français Racing again, all over again.
But then me and Ken walk from the barn down to the Vale Hotel. And as we're walking down, we pass the Ospreys chairman, who walks in. So me and Ken thinking,
finger at you.
And he goes, he resigns immediately there. So by the time we get down to the hotel, the merger's off because he's resigned and they can't sign heads of agreement.
Oh my God.
So the thing is, you wouldn't believe it. This is what I don't understand. Like, listeners at home, whenever we hammer about just they're so unprofessional. Like, it's madness. You're talking about people's lives, careers, jobs, financial institutions, businesses decided on just like a whim, but done unilaterally with no discussion with anything. Just go, right, we're doing this. You're like, sorry, what? And by the time you've got down to the other end of the thing, someone's resigned and the whole thing's off.
Yeah.
And but you've got all the emotional turmoil of suddenly going, right, hold on, we're merging two businesses. The bin juice, the injured, who pays the bills, what squad size, who do we keep?
Yeah, well, they were moving one team up to North Wales.
Do you remember the whole thing of Stade Français and Racing merging? It's exactly the same story. So Stade Français and Racing hate each other, right?
Yes.
It's the biggest rivalry forever, since for 100 years old club that they hate each other. And one day there was this whole rumor that they might merge, and people were like this is a joke. It can't be. That was a Saturday. On the Monday, same meeting, it's happening. Lorenzetti gets a microphone given to him. So how are you going to work out with the player squad? He goes, 42 plus 42 equals 42. That was his answer, saying they will get rid of 42 players. 42 plus 42 equals 42. That was his only answer.
Oh my God.
So this is just nuts, because I 100% believe that it's happening. That sentence, it's happening, means shut your mouth, just go and sign the papers. You have nothing to do with it.
But just imagine like even in your own relationship with your partner, you just walked in and went, right, moving to New York. What do you mean? Pack your bags. We're done. What do you mean?
It's happening.
It's happening. It's happening.
Well,
I said to my wife, it's happening. I said to her the other night, I'm going out with the lads. It's happening. She knows it's fucking not. It's happening. No, it is. I've signed the document.
Move it to just more like this is the paint color we're having on the wall.
Yeah.
It's happening.
Yeah.
That's what I got.
Yeah, we're having another
that
kid,
does
are we?
happen to me though. Yeah.
No, I find it amazing. I mean, I tell you, Alan Wynne, who's obviously kind of a guy again who's very reserved. This is what I like about situations like this: is that I said it before. I've got the utmost respect for him because I never forget when Wales played England at Twickenham. We beat you quite convincingly. The president had a.
Oh yeah.
President, you're trying to remember a time you lost. Yeah, come on. I know every time we have you on the show, you're like, I wasn't playing that one, wasn't playing that one, wasn't playing.
I was playing.
You
that
played
one.
on that one, you lost.
Yeah,
Own it, chief, right? And so the president had a few sherbets, right? Got up and basically said, well, the Welsh team were an embarrassment. They were awful. They let their country down. They let themselves down. Like, it was like proper nuclear. Now, obviously, everyone will know that, again, a lot of these organisations are full of old duffers, right? Who again, sometimes make these unilateral decisions and think it's acceptable, and then obviously have to panically backtrack. I saw Alan Wynne, as soon as he sat down, went up to him and said, "Don't ever speak about the boys like that again. You've stepped over the mark. They've never let the country down. They never let themselves down. We lost to a good team on the day," and like properly put it to him. And for someone like me, I've always felt unable at times, unless really pushed to speak up, because I was never as valuable to England as Alan Jones is to Wales, or never had the kudos or the authority. Ironically, with things like with Wasps, when I took the players on strike, because we weren't getting paid, we were training in awful facilities. The cars were getting robbed every time we had an away game because the criminals were just looking at the away sheet and going, right, well, they're not here. And a guy had so much time robbing Matt Mullen's car. He had a joint in the back of the car with his feet up, and you could see him, right? We had to, the pitch. They laid the pitch that they laid the depth of it wrong. So basically, it got compacted, so it turned into concrete. So lads' legs were being disintegrated, right? So we went to them with this dossier and said, look, I'm taking the players on strike, and this is the next point I want to come on to. Take the players on strike. We're not going to do any commercial appearances. We're not going to do any media, but we're still going to play. But we're going to turn up. We're going to play. We're going to leave, and that's all we're going to do. And they were like, you can't do that. I said, we're doing it. I said, lads, we're doing it. We've got to do it. They're not listening to us. All we wanted was a meeting. That's all we wanted. All I wanted was the senior management to come and meet us because they've been avoiding us. They said we were going to have this multi-million-pound training facility. They kept signing players using this virtual walkthrough you got through an email. So Lima Sapawanga thought he was coming to this incredible all-singing, all-dancing facility they've got now. Instead, he turned up to Broad Street, where you could describe the lower pitch as sort of marshland. Right, it's sort of a bog with some posts in it.
Is that the Foxy?
The Foxy minefield. No, the Foxy minefields at Acton. This is the bog, right? This is it's like the Florida Keys. It's like the mangrove swamp, right, down there. And you've obviously got porta cabins for gyms with a generator that they didn't pay the fuel thing, so it would run out at night. All the ice machines would melt. Boys were training in the dark, so a 6:30 binge session. Lads were using their phone lights to see the fucking weights. Wow. Right? It was like freezing cold, utter carnage. So I took them all on strike, right? Because I got fired up about that. I was like, do you know what? I'm old in the tooth now. Fuck these. I'm gonna do it. So I remember we had our thing with the RPA. And I called up the RPA and said, right, we're doing this. Like panic. I can imagine they got like a little Renault car with a little orange light on it, came round, like the bats, like a super squad, turned up. Right, you can't do that. It's illegal. Right, and they told me all the things I couldn't do. And I said, no, you're not listening. I know it's probably not legal, but we're doing it. And they're like, you're all going to get fired, you're all out of contract. I went, right, are you going to help us because we're doing it, or are you going to tell me all the things that I can't do? And I well, I just think you should know. Noted, if we all get fired, don't worry about it. But they're not going to sack an entire squad of players. Yeah, but they might pick off the young lads. I go, trust me, if they fire one of the young lads, I'll quit. We'll all go together. I mean, I probably wouldn't. I would have definitely sacrificed the young player. But the intention, right, they don't know that. Right? But there is an issue with this strike, because as we're building up into this week, right, there is a concern. I'm not asking you to go over the contractual details, but there is some concern that actually the boys might be in breach if they try to strike this weekend.
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not exactly sure of the details. I'm sure, they'll be all over it, going through the finer details. But I'm sure their advice and guidance will be accurate.
Yeah, fine.
I think there was talk of the boys going to a sponsors dinner and then seeing the sponsors and then leaving at the right time.
Yeah.
So like they are doing things by the book, which is good. Like I think we're acting very professional as a players association. Like as a group of players, we're not breaking any laws, but they're just. I think we just want to be heard, and I think it's just it's got to this point where this action by the players, us as players, has got to.
But they've also stopped. They've stopped the Netflix filming thing, though, haven't they? They've turned around and said you can't have the cameras in there, which obviously would be an interesting point because they would have signed a deal with the Six Nations. So you're meant to let them come in. You're not meant. I don't think anyone in the history of the Netflix thing has just said, right, actually, you're not coming in. So that must cause a few problems, isn't it?
I imagine so. Like to be continued.
To be continued. But also,
that's the only thing I would have kept, to be honest.
That's what I'm
But then have validation of whether it's released or not.
But do you have editorial right? That would like.
So that I don't know.
I'm not sure about that as well. Whether or not like you're giving something that you're trying to control to something that you can't control then with editorial right?
And the only power that you've got as a player squad is if everybody is on board and everybody's pushing in the same direction. So they need to be superly transparent, honest, direct. If you have a camera staring at you, for certain individuals it's obviously not easy.
Or we could be having a conversation in the team room and there might be a microphone underneath.
Yeah, no, that's complicated.
Yeah.
But you mentioned Alan Wynne there. I saw the video during the week. I thought he spoke really well because he was not. Look, he's been class and direct and stuff. The face of Gats next to him, oh my gosh! And I was thinking to myself, surely he must have had a conversation because he knows Welsh rugby inside out. He must have had a conversation either with, I don't know, Sam Warburton or yourself or whoever prior to coming back and be like, what exactly is the situation of the finance? Somebody must have told him something.
He hasn't called up Foxy. He's lost your number.
He's lost my number. I was just checking. All right, has he called me? To check.
No, but you know what I mean. He must also be thinking in his head, somebody's lied to me.
But yes, I think so. I think
100%.
I think with the guys who I remember when Di first took over at Wasps, when he turned up and realised that they didn't have a player budget, and the first sponsors dinner was 4 tables at a travel lodge, and the auction prizes was a shirt from 2 years ago signed by half a squad and a box of damaged Rebellion Mutiny beer with just a can, and that was the auction prize, and the compere was like a former referee, and it was like a lonely, sad gentleman's club, and he was like, I can't afford it. And then when Di was having to pay money out of his own pocket to like pay for the generator and fuel and putting petrol in the bus so we could get to a game, he had no idea that was coming. So I would say that Gats probably just saw the number on his. No wonder there's a deficit. Imagine what Gats' contract to get him back in last minute. I would want to trace back, go right. Is his salary responsible for the fact that the
sudden drop?
Yeah, that's a great. Allegedly, I'm suggesting Warren Gatland has sucked up all the cash. But that's a very good point. I wonder. But he's on board with the players, but he doesn't. What he thinks striking is the wrong thing.
No,
everybody thinks that striking is the wrong thing. They don't want to strike.
No.
But
they're desperate not to strike.
But do you know what? Genuine, right? I don't want to see the world burn at all. But until something like this happens, I don't think anyone takes anything seriously. I just think that rugby and in general is managed so badly and so unprofessionally and so out of touch in regards to how you should do things, and also the role that players play in it and how important our opinion is. So whether that's from making disciplinary rules, that's making changes to the game, changes to the season, changes to the financial structure. We're not involved in any single one of them. And even going back to the sacking of Eddie, all of it was a group. It was a panel of old players, not new players, making decisions. Until somebody does this, and I promise you, God, this would go down history if they do it. But I wonder. I want to ask this. I wonder if push came to shove and there's no negotiation, and on the WRU and the PRB call the bluff, and it comes down to a minute, do you think those boys will have the balls? Do you think Alan Jones will literally go, right, we're not doing it, or will they fold? Because I think, hopefully it doesn't come off.
Yeah.
But what do you think, though? Because would you answer it?
Yeah. I think that the steel that they've shown so far would indicate that, they've seriously considered it, and I've probably gone through what they need to do just in case they have to. Like, I think it is a bit of a standoff at the moment, but I don't know. I hope to God it. Like it's just like, and like you said, until something like this is done, will change happen? We don't know.
No.
And like,
who would be the first scab over the line? Ken Owens, 100%. Right? Imagine that. We're striking. Right? Ken. He'll be out the side door in the blazer going, right, I'm not being funny. We'll get a team of the B team together. I'll captain it. We'll sack the rest of them. We'll make it. And all the rest will be like, fuck you, Ken. You're supposed to be stuck with the boys. WRU, chairman for life. I reckon he'd negotiate himself a seat for life, a car parking space with his name on it, right? A gold blazer, Captain Wales. He'd go straight over the line, no pressure. Like, I reckon in our year, Robbo would be gone 2 minutes, right? They'd be like, listen, Robbo, it has the ringleader, throw him under the bus, go on video and say it was all Hask's fault. You captaincy, lifetime chairman of the RFU. Robbo would have thrown me under the bus straight away. I'm joking, he probably would have done.
It's just mad, and hopefully the agreement happens. There's the voices are heard and the boys are playing. Otherwise, Gats is panically. He might actually find my number then.
Would you turn
Shane Falco like a replacement?
That's what I mean. That entire movie. Because think about Netflix. Imagine you could they went right. What would they do if they called you out on Foxy? Like, I'm not being funny, right? Captain. You can have triple the match fee, right? You're going to be the bloke from the movie The Replacements. Would you do it?
Well, Ken Alwyn tipped my car then in the car park and everything.
Yeah. Would you do it?
No. Whatever we as players decide.
5 times.
5 times.
5 times.
8 times? Guarantee contract for life.
Guarantee contract.
For life.
Yeah, for life.
I'm a parking spot to keep.
Parking spot. Yeah, that's what you're
Golden blazer.
35% off Nando's. Oi.
That's the killer argument.
200 quid off a
That's the
Samsung
killer
TV.
argument.
You push me hard. I can't do any more than that.
LG got this 60-inch TV that you would get 40% off.
Can you? That's what I mean. That's what his RPA, right? Oi, £20 off your mobile phone bill. 75-inch LG TV, 200 quid off that, 5 times your salary, for a car parking space, 20% off Nando's, and a blazer. You've literally run me dry.
Yeah.
Are you crossing the line?
That sounds enough to get the actual whole funding back up. Yeah. Oh God. Yeah.
But actually, interestingly, sorry to be interrupted, but this has actually happened before with England. Now, I was still wet in the bed when this happened, but there was an England players strike in 2000.
Yeah. For the match fees, no?
Yeah, and it was over the match fees. They didn't actually miss a game, and they went on to win the World Cup 3 years later. But after defeating the then World Champions Australia in November 2000, the England squad walked out en masse from the team hotel following a dispute over pay, which had been simmering for months as players fought against an RFU proposal to reduce the guaranteed fee and increase the win bonus. Martin Johnson accused the RFU of being old-fashioned, patronising and arrogant. Head coach Clive Woodward labelled the actions the saddest day in the history of English rugby and offered an ultimatum to his players that he would pick another side if they did not return to training. Now, I've spoken to lads about this before because it was like a fascinating moment, because if you were going to design a group of players to strike, what better group than a country of not if you're the leader, Alan is good. Martin Johnson, right? Martin Johnson, Graham Roundtree, Lawrence Delalio, Matt Dawson,
Neil Back,
Gangs of New York,
right? Yeah. Phil Vickery. It is like Gangs of New York. That's exactly what it is. All of them have got different. Vickery's just got to roll up on the go in a club, but it's still got blood on it, notches on it. Yeah, Jono's just kill shot. That's a kill shot. That's a kill shot. Right, stabbing a dummy of Francis Barron of the RFU. Right, but this is a story. So they obviously pushed it and were like, no, we're not messing around. But there's a really nice subplot. Now, this is what I heard third hand. It's alleged, but it's amazing. It's that they basically, Clive Woodward stood up in front of them and said, listen, guys, if you play this game against Australia, I will support you in whatever you do next week. But we need to get this game out of the way. This is really important. Okay. So everyone said, yeah, we're going to do it. They then played the game. They obviously then walked out. And Clive was like at the front going, no, you can't believe you can't do this. And Jono was like, you said you supported us. And Woodward had like tears in his eyes. I didn't say that. I never committed to it. And they were like, really? You fucking did, mate. You did. We all saw it. You told us that if we played the game, you would help fight our corner and you would understand us and you wouldn't put the ultimatum. So it's amazing. Everyone loses their head under pressure. Now, I said that's alleged. I mean, we can ask Clive if he wants to come on and verify whether that story was not true. I've heard it from 8 or 9 lads at that period of time. But it happened. They obviously then had the negotiations, sorted it out, and moved forward. So hopefully, it doesn't come to that. I mean,
no.
But I mean, you said a couple of minutes ago. It's all about: is there player representation? Is there strong leadership in the player representation all over the place? I was always in France. All the arguments. Obviously, there's cash, there's stuff. There's mainly around the calendar, is getting it rammed with games and more games, and Six Nations being played same time as top 14, and guys going back and forth, and you really feel that you're sitting between 2 seats. I remember, Foxy, you telling Wesley Fofana, who was your partner center, there's no way in the world that you can be good with France with what's happening now. I don't know how you're doing it, and you were asking all those questions. So it's mainly around the calendar. And then I heard that in New Zealand, the Players Association was Richie McCaw, Conrad Smith, and I can't remember who actually literally wrote the laws with the guys over the calendar. And they said, how many games do you decide we play a year? Well, no. First we decide how many weeks do you need in between seasons to actually fully recover. They said, right, it's going to be 8 weeks of full recovery. Then you need 6 weeks to actually train. So they had a 14-week pre-season, which was rest, and 6 weeks to actually get ready. Then you can ram as many games as you want between that, as long as the conversation stays the same. In France, how does it work? Top 14, 13 times 2, 16, into European rugby, international rugby. Fine, we're left with 3 weeks in the summer. Is that going to be enough? Can you actually hold it? Oh, fucking hell, they want one more week. They're killing us. How can we do this?
Whitelock, and I said, what are you doing on holiday? He's got 8 weeks off. I said, what? So what? 8 weeks, like a school holiday. I said, I got 3 weeks off. The maximum I ever got was 3 weeks off every season from 18 to this. That's it. Never got any more than that. Because you had to come,
Is it fair to say, though, because you've been there, that the New Zealand guys, I don't know about Dan Carter, Richie McCaw, I don't know, but they're not paid the most in the world either.
No.
So it's actually not correlated with the amount of cash they managed to generate.
They've got a franchise model. So, for example, Aaron Smith. So the most, this was at the time, this might have changed. At the time, I think your like the Highlanders could pay him 200 grand or 250 was the maximum you could play to your top player. Then NRZU would then top that up with another 200 grand or whatever it is, and that would they would then do that, and they would obviously have their individual endorsements. But in comparison to the season, the length, the time, the management, it's a completely different world. And we had it with the RPA again. And this is the problem with all of this stuff with rugby. And I think the players are to blame. And what I actually admire about the Welsh is that, in this particular case, is that a lot of us let this stuff wash us through. Like, there is no way that any of us want any of these extra rugby tournaments that we're playing at the moment. Nobody wanted a season extension. So we had this meeting, right? We all went round, all got in rooms. Flip charts, all the stuff. Must be professional if you've got a flip chart. If you haven't got a flip chart, are you even being professional? And they said, look, we're going to do a season extension. This is what we're going to do, etc. And we went, absolutely not. Everyone went, no. They went around every club, said, no. We didn't hear anything more about it until they came in and went, yeah, we're doing the season extension. And we're like, well, hold on. No, we told you we didn't want it. Like, yeah, but we've looked into it and we've just all decided you're going to do it. Yeah. And then we're like, but nobody then did anything about it. So if you don't do anything about it, didn't the fact that you're not actually standing up for it, you just let some stuff wash over it. So I think, again, this is just a constant reminder to players that the game cannot happen without us. You can't play an international game without us. You can't move the game. You can't progress the game. You can't grow the sport if you don't take care of the players. And I think we have a responsibility to be much more vocal about what we do, much more take the power into our own hands and stop being pushed around and stop being. I'm not saying we go out there and demand more money, but I'm saying we look after the game and we become the custodians of it instead of letting these other people run it.
It's like it's like player welfare and stuff like that. It's like boys want to make sure that in this new standard contract there's a minimum amount of rest. Like you put value on that sort of stuff.
Absolutely.
More than sometimes the cash. Because I went back from Claremont and I was like, right, they were like, right, you're going to have 6 weeks off in the summer away from the club, and then you will play then 2 weeks later. So I knew like I would have a good rest and be able to come in and say, all right, I'm getting older in my career. I put value on that. And for me, that was important. So it's not, again, I emphasize, it's not about the cash. It's about
a bit of a side angle to this. I believe the future of rugby, maybe not top international world-class standards, but all the other guys, for me, the future of rugby is pluri-activity. I don't know how you say that, but more than one job, basically. How could they not come up with this thing of saying, look, purely to play rugby, you're going to have to take the wedges down 40%. Okay, fair enough. And the top guys maybe can go abroad if they really want to. But for all the other guys, in terms of player welfare, in terms of post-career transitioning, we will give you off every Thursday. And every Thursday, you can actually work into one of the sponsorship clubs. You can actually learn a trade. You can know what you want to do, what you don't want to do. There are thousands of sponsors who support. Who the only thing they want is to see Foxy come on a Thursday morning, whatever, to learn. And you'd be surprised at the number of players who are actually keen to try something different. And that could get you 10, 20K a year or whatever, just to go from time to time.
Right,
that would have been a win-win situation.
Also, imagine if they put money into a fund as well. Like maybe they said in your retirement,
absolutely,
what we're going to take for the salary, but actually we'll put into a retirement in for surgery post your career. And we'll all put into that, and that's what you're getting, and you get much more benefit. I think that's a really great idea. That would completely change the game, because you could say, look, actually, to make this game sustainable, we can't pay what we're paying at the moment, but this is what we can do, and these are the other benefits, and we can restructure it.
Absolutely, but what happens to these guys when they came back from France and stuff to go to Wales? He was happy to go home. You're going home. You can't put money on that, on family, on friends, of genuine happiness, of not moving around. Well, you can't put a lot of value into that. That's why it pisses me off over this conflict. It's extremely one-dimensional. There's a big problem. Let's solve it only by doing one thing: cutting your money. Bring wealth and bring added value and bring another offer by doing something else. If it's not going to be cash, what else has Wales to offer? Taking care of the children, extra job opportunities, academical support in university, whatever it is, just try to create some other solution.
So some clubs do have that, and it's a funny story where one Welsh player, the club he was at, would put like what the courses the club were trying to do, whether it's like plumbing course, electrician course, all sorts of courses. And one day this guy, he called up his mate. He goes, oh, but have you seen the courses out this week? He goes, 3 days training, I'm a trained barrister. Like that. Boy goes, sorry mate, it's a barista. Oh, bloody hell. So he thought he was going to have the wig on after 3 days.
Imagine that. Mate, that is, oh my God.
3 day course.
Dyslexia, eh? I love that. Well, listen, I don't think we've solved anything. Obviously, this is a movable feast, and when this comes out, things may have changed. Yeah. We obviously hope the game does happen. I think it's pretty clear from each one of our stories, our own experiences, that player representation needs to happen. Yeah. That, I think, is the simplest, most important step. Stop doing this behind closed doors. Start involving us, and
communication is the key. I think in transparency, and I think us as players, if we get that, there's room to manoeuvre, and I'm sure a deal will be resolved.
But there is a lot of rugby to be played this weekend. It would be remiss of us not to preview it. I mean, Ben, we'll leave Wales for a minute. Let's start with you. Have the tears stopped? Is it in a public day of mourning? Are France now going to go to pieces, or are they going to come back with a vengeance?
To be honest, I was lucky enough to be there, and I was blown away by the Irish performance. Mate, they can play rugby at the moment. They can play rugby. Cillian Dorris, I actually didn't. He's only 24 years old.
No. Oh my God,
he's a beast of a dude. Yeah. He's got a fantastic engine. He's clever. He's a monster in the ruck. Look, all of them. I was very, very impressed by the performance. The stadium was buzzing. It was just a great game of rugby. They were outplayed by a better team. Period. Now, a few controversial decisions. The game could have been different. Red card for Antonio. First try of Lowe. I think he's out in touch. Yeah. Loads of things can be said and done, and it could have been changed. They got outperformed on the day. Does it change anything to how good they are? No. Does it change anything to the outcome of the World Cup? I don't believe so. Does it change anything on the outcome of that game? Absolutely. Six Nations is definitely going towards Ireland. If they can replicate those type of performances, I don't see who can touch them at the moment, considering England are going there also for the game. So a few bumps and bruises for France. Maybe they're going to start to consider. I was speaking to Damien Penaud after the game. That 6-2 bench with using Sekou Makalu as the perfect hybrid player is a bit complicated. Player welfare. Grégory Aldrit, he's played 3 times more minutes than Cillian Dorris. Because he plays 8 minutes every single time that he's got the La Rochelle shirt on. Yeah. So he's gone back to the old That's been the French problem. Antoine
And he's
Dupont
done
played
that for years as well.
mate, for years. Antoine Dupont played much more. I played with Johan Maestri, that you guys probably played against for a long time. Man, he played 42 games for 6 years consecutively. He was the highest cap. He was one of the youngest to reach 50 caps with Gaël Ficou. Except Gaël Ficou plays center. He got rested from time to time. Mate, he is dead meat, and he's pretty much retired. He's playing for second division Japanese club, and he's only aged 32 or 33 now.
I had that. So when I was at Stade Francais, I played 41 and 42 games, including the England stuff.
You can do that one year.
Yeah.
1 year.
And when I ended up, I did it for 2 years. That's why I walk like a shit myself.
So Ireland, France, basically to answer your question, a really tough loss. Fair play to Ireland. They were spectacular. France will learn. France will have to have a bit of a backup plan. We'll start to refocus on, bloody hell, we need to be in absolutely top physical shape to stand off to those best teams. And they had a week off. They've been training hard. There's the Antonio suspension. Yeah, that's going to be a big blow. But other than that, they seem to be in a good place, and they've got a very exciting game against Scotland at the weekend, who are on fire at the moment.
I mean, so Fabien Gaultier said the series of wins are there. Now it's necessary to learn how to take a defeat. Defeat is not really a friend, but we'll have to spend the day with her. We've all had to spend a day with a bird we don't really like. Defeat. They're called various different names. Defeat will go with this occasion. What I want to ask you, you having been there, right, is the old cliche that everyone always talked about before this new crop of French players was the emotional element, the fact that there was obviously infighting, everyone likes to be a politician, the emotions. With this team, you don't sense there is any of that at all. But I wonder, because they have had and have earned some very good wins, do you think there is any element that it could derail them? Or do you think, do you know what, there won't be a problem with this at all? This is just what happens to a team and they will come back stronger.
I think 10 years ago, the same game, the same team, lose by 60 in Ireland.
Okay.
They're like within the game over 30 minutes, potentially get a yellow by Antonio, feel that every time that they score a formidable try by Damien Penaud, they come back and score again. They would have given up. Yeah. Antoine Dupont, squeezing that winger back out in touch, that's not them giving up.
Okay.
Until the last minute, they were really in the fight, and they dug deep and they went over and beyond what they could have done physically. I think they're learning to not to understand defeat, but to learn from a defeat when you're just beaten by better. Yes. It's not like an intercept last second. They were beaten by a better team, and had they dropped a little bit on the performance, they would have conceded 40 or 50 points easy.
Do you think the fact they had an extra week would have helped them to almost take in the defeat and so, right, we still have a lot to play in this tournament? Because a week turnaround after a defeat, you could have seen them just thought, right, we're not going to win the Grand Slam again this year, right? We got nothing to play for, but now they can actually focus on build up to a massive test match at home.
Yeah, well, they've had this week off, last week basically, which has helped them. But having Scotland come around, I think, is actually the perfect opponent, because Scotland are on fire, because Scotland are delivering, because Scotland is a team that France doesn't particularly do fantastically well against, because you don't really know where to put them, and they're not either the most physical or the fastest. So they're a complicated beast to handle, and they're gonna be on fire. So no, I think it's the perfect way to get back on the horse and to at home and to lick your wounds all together, and that's what the boys have been doing. There was also an idea of them not getting them in the best physical shape, and that's why they pushed really, really hard the week of Italy, and they knew they weren't going to be perfect, and that was one of the excuses of their poor performance on the opening game, and they were hoping for the bounce. It was the week of the bounce.
Yes, the whole idea when you're... in 2015, we did World Cup, right? They kept using this graphic. They put this graphic up, right? And it was like, if you're training 120% of normal, at this beat, you're going to be pinging. By the time the World Cup comes up, you're going to
peak in the semis, so you never made it to the quarters.
You said you'd be peaking, right? And they had a graph, and it would go up, and at the top of it was 120% flames, and and there was like numbers, like indecipherable numbers that you've gone from 5,000 quattrons to 9,000. Like what amount is a quattron? Like that, it's like fuel points on a fucking fuel band. Like, what are you talking about, right? And they did it, and they had graphics. It was like, you boys can be pinging. You kept saying you'll be pinging, right? I'm still waiting to ping 6 years later. Not one of us pinged, right? It was like one of those moments. So I'm always very skeptical when they say, right, we're going to overtrain you, because the idea is in 2 weeks you're going to adjust. I don't think it works in rugby, because you just get battered, you go into it battered, and you're more battered, and it takes you even longer to here's the revolutionary idea: do less, play better, rest more, kill it. It's a new scenario, right?
Yeah.
And
Don't see that catching.
don't see that cat. Not with this mentality. Just on the Dupont try-saving tackle, you saw it.
Yeah.
I mean, what did you think about that? Because for me, it was like mind-blowing.
I think he always does something incredible, whether it's with the ball or without the ball. Like his work rate, his vision, and that just final nail in the coffin. Like it just like holy smoke. And
Are you even human?
Yeah, and like the angle Hansen had, and then for him just to manipulate his body in an angle and just pull him back is like
It was harder for him not to score.
yeah,
Like he was already over. Like, but the worst thing was he'd sort of half dived.
yeah.
And then just got yanked back.
I would love to know what Hansen was actually thinking at that point. He's like, what's going on?
So we've talked a lot about Scotland. We mugged them off a couple of times because they've won the first game a few times. The whole country lose their mind. They're going to win the World Cup. Then they lose the second game. Now, they hadn't won the second game in 37 years. They've done that now. Convincingly. And they're trying not to talk themselves up. There's no talk of Grand Slams. Everyone's trying to egg them on. I mean, what do they do against France? And where do you think they're going to go in this tournament? And what would be acceptable for them, Foxy?
I think France are the stronger team, and I think the way they'll play. I think, like when I watched France Ireland, I think I thought France played a bit too much early on. They went through a lot of phases, and I thought, right, normally France is all about kicking the ball, putting you under pressure, mistake, then come alive and back that Sean Edwards defence. So I see them reverting to type a bit more this week. So it's about Scotland is, that they managed that quite well against Wales. Wales kicked a lot and they were able to get the game going in the second half. So look, I don't see them winning in Paris, but like credit to them, they've managed to get a consistency in their game. And I think for them is to be competitive this week and looking, they might be able to pull off a hell of a win, but I don't see it happening with a French team that, like you said, licking their wounds and ready to go at home. That Paris crowd will be behind that team. So, it's going to be an interesting game because if you think, when did they play last? 2021. That was Scotland actually did win, didn't they? Yeah, on the Friday night. So yeah, they can do it, but I just think France have improved since that.
Moving on to Ireland versus Italy. I mean, I think it's a good opportunity for Ireland to rest some players. You'd like to think they're going to give Sexton a rest.
Yeah.
Put the second. Who is the second choice at the moment?
Burn.
Yeah. Give Burn
he
a game.
might be injured, Johnny Sexton, anyway.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
We'll give them an opportunity. Italy. I mean, I thought they've done brilliantly. I think they're starting to look great. But this, for me, looks like it's going to be a bit of a painful experience if Ireland turn up. I think it could be nuclear scoreboard. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, well, look, Ireland are going to be tested in how disciplined and how steady they can be. I actually thought that it's worth mentioning, but that game against France, they were without Furlong, they were without Robbie Henshaw, they were without Gibson Park.
Yeah.
So I'm like, bloody hell. On top of that, when you're missing 3-4 players, they can be lethal. They lost Tack Byrne, I think, the lock. That's a big loss. He's a monster of a player.
But they got Ian Henderson come in.
So unfortunately, yeah, one way street. I don't think at the moment they are the type of team who will be laid back and they'll look for that depth, like you said. And I think Farrell has got them really well wired into, look, not only do we want to be good, but we want to be number one, and we're back in that.
I mean, I was having sat in those change rooms before with the team that's gone to Italy in form. It always becomes down to actually worry about ourselves. Don't be dragged down to what Italy want to do. Don't play. We're going to have to judge ourselves by the highest standards. So, how many phases do we complete? How immaculate was our set piece? How good defensively were we? How many tackles behind the gain line did we get?
Imagine the pre-match motivation speech for Farrell. On top of that, he's also saying, "Boys, do you want to go to the World Cup and actually try to get to the semi for the first time ever? Well, earn your jersey. It's going to be a super easy way. When everybody's outperforming, playing out of their skin every single Saturday, it's a lot easier to then rotate to be like, right, do you want to be part of this bus?
Yeah.
Here's probably your only shot you will get to have a full 80 and to go at it, because then there's 2 monster games coming up afterwards. So it's
and the thing with Andy Farrell is he keeps a pretty settled team, doesn't he?
Yeah.
You see a lot of people experimenting. the reason I mentioned Johnny Sexton is that he's obviously a linchpin.
Yeah.
And one criticism you could say against Ireland is that they don't really have an out-and-out replacement for him yet, that someone's really turned up and sees the jersey. So maybe this is your opportunity. Certainly, if it's Byrne, this is his D-Day, right? This is his World Cup final. He's got to absolutely lead the way.
He definitely needs time in the middle with the players around him that that start week in, week out, for him to show what he can do. And I think that familiarity with Leinster. He plays at Leinster, and I think Ireland at the moment just have a confidence and a level of execution that I haven't seen for a long time. It's so impressive, and I just if they go there with that mentality, businessman-like, roll the sleeves up, they'll get the reward.
Well, we left it to last, but England versus Wales. I mean, ironically, before you threw the strike action in, I thought for both this team this was massive. I thought for England, do you know what? Against Scotland, actually not too bad, but outplayed by Scotland. Italy, probably more workmanlike at times, but some good moments. I thought Italy played well, but I thought England, I think it was a missed opportunity, probably not taking Owen off and letting Marcus Smith play with Slade, and again making like-for-like replacements and having those opportunities, but better. I think there were some good moments. But actually, Wales didn't play too badly against Scotland in the first half, just couldn't score. Yeah. I think going down, this is a bit of a D-Day for both of these teams. I mean, Foxy, what's your view on? Well, I mean, Richard Cockrell feels that the Welsh team are going to be galvanised by this. I mean, you've been in a fair few scrapes. We've talked about this already on the show, where you've got like Ospreys trying to merge, etc. In the middle of a Grand Slam week. How do you keep your lid on, and does it make you more of a team?
I think there's definitely a sense of the boys have come tight and they've shut up shop and they're not listening to any noise outside. I think you galvanise anyway when you play in England at home. You know what it's like, and it's massive. It's a massive game in the context of the tournament. The boys don't want this run to go on. Gats will be emphasising the fundamentals of accuracy, kicking game, I imagine, and the defence. I think if you get those right, because I think what's costing Wales a bit at the moment is just that turnover rate. Yeah, we're just not keeping the ball for long enough in the right areas, and you see that in the frustration with the boys. But I know they've been worked extremely hard last week, and I think they're on the bounce back.
Pinging. They're going to ping.
Yeah, they might. Hopefully they're pinging this week.
There's nothing better than when you've got strike action going on and you've lost and you've already played a hard game to really, really just work you hard. Yeah. Just to bounce back. That you feel it in your legs, lads. You feel it in your legs, but you will feel super fresh come game day. Really, because my back's seized up, my shoes are filled with blood. What are your view on it at the moment? I mean, you know, from a because you're a professional commentator these days, you're probably we've got more kudos than any of us in this world. What do you make about both teams? Do you see any positives with England or Wales at the moment?
Well, first I have a bit of a soft spot for Wales. I mean, look in the heads of the guys. It really can't be easy. With a young generation of player, I mean, I was really impressed with. I couldn't watch really the game last week, but the opener with Jack Morgan, I thought he's a proper player. Yeah. That flanker, he belts guys, you know, for 80 minutes, and as long as you have those guys who are fired up and are ready to go, you know, you've got some bright future about it. The last thing they needed is this whole disruption of governments and stuff. So I actually feel bad for them, and I hope they will be able to have enough energy just to actually have fun and do the jersey proud, because I thoroughly hope that the game will be played. But now, if you speak about England, yeah, like you said, disappointing performance the first one, a very big decision of not playing Marcus Smith and Owen Farrell together. You stick with one, not the most outrageous performance, okay, but I see Courtney-Loss coming back, I think, into the squad. That's massive.
Massive.
They really have missed him.
He's so important.
They've missed him. He was captain in Australia when they won the tour over there, didn't they? Yeah. So on top of that, there's some leadership ability about him. I think they are really missing him just as a player, and abrasive, big ball carrying, just mean dude.
He's got 90 caps now. Do you know what I mean?
He's a proper player.
And do you know the thing with someone like Courtney, you know, you saw when he was younger that he had raw talent and you thought he was good. And then I remember it was sort of just before, around 2015, 2016, he just developed a completely different ball carrying game, footwork at the line. His tackling has always been spot on, but he's just got better and better and better and better. And actually, if you were to look at it, we'll always say Ellis Genn should always be the first name on the team sheet, as we love him, and he's part of GBR, and he's a real sort of firebrand. But I think the one person you would always say you want in that England team now, over Marrow, over everyone, is Courtney.
He's no fuss at all, is he? He's just strictly business.
Strictly business.
Strictly business.
I remember, like those walking lineouts, he'd just go, on me, bruv. He just and he'd just walk in, give it a hand, and just leap up in the air, catch it with one hand.
Yeah, but you know how it is when your confidence is a little bit iffy. You just need a guy who backs himself.
Yeah,
like he's like, give me the ball. That type of guy, man. You love that.
And also, Court, you're exactly right. When it's a bit stressful, Court's like, say someone runs through in defence, like an unopposed or not unopposed, right? On like the Thursday session, you just see Courts go, okay, and the next time someone will come out, douche, and it'll be like a flying like arrow, axe someone in half, and just go, okay, you gonna fuck about, go on, Courts, and it just doesn't even, and the swaggers off and eats a cheese sandwich and has a glass of apple juice, like didn't give a fuck. Club sandwiches, bruv, 5 times a day.
No. I think England are very threatening this weekend. I'll be totally honest. Ollie Lawrence giving a few more minutes.
How good was he, man?
Man, he's good. You need that punch in the middle, but he's very good also because you realise how unbalanced Marcus Smith, Owen Farrell was.
Yes.
Right. If you could have Manu in there, you could Henry Slade. I still think is not used.
Well, it was. Tinds pointed out that that's a great spot for you because apparently he made four ball carriers or something like that for 2 yards, 2 meters or something like this, and just didn't get the ball, wasn't given any space. When and the reason I like Lawrence as a centre because, and I think look, Manu's obviously unfortunately got this red card. I think he's probably very disappointed to be left out. His form hasn't been amazing for Sale, but England look a completely different team when you've got someone going forward. Like everyone wants to have this sort of champagne rugby, but unless you go forward and get any sort of momentum, you're never gonna play. But you would have thought off the back of that, Slady would have been put into more space, had the opportunity. There's some disconnect somewhere as to why he's not getting the ball. I don't know why.
No, they needed a bit more time under their belts. They need a bit more Owen Farrell running the show, position for position. Marcus Smith, 20 minutes to win a game. He's the other guy. You want to come off the bench. I think you'll be surprised of how Alex Dombrand can also evolve with the Courtney next to him. You just don't know how this chemistry can work out. How the overall performances can stand out. And so, unfortunately for Wales, but good for England, I think they're back on track and they're lethal.
Well, lads, it's now time for our favourite pizza maker, Domino's. It's time for Domino's Dough Baller of the Week. Now, this week it's slightly different because there was no Six Nations action. So instead, we're looking further afield. You two need to pick out a standout player. That can be from anything. It can be from the Premiership, the AP15s, whatever it might be, that deserves a pizza voucher. And it could be something you've seen this week. I mean, I'm going to give it for Alan Wynne-Jones just because he stood up in his fight, in the good fight for the lads. Nothing, when you're deep in strike action, getting absolutely trained into the ground, a nice little pizza would go down and give you a little bit of a smile because everybody gets a smile on their face from a Domino's. What about you, Foxy?
I think I'll give it to Mike Brown. I think he had over 11 months away from the game. And I think I heard, is he 36 or 37? Flying the flag for us elder statesman, and it's just good to see him back and obviously enjoying his rugby. I think he enjoyed that game on the weekend, so I'll send him a Domino's.
Okay.
A legendary backline for Leicester Tigers between Benny Youngs and Jimmy Gopperth and Brown and
Ashton.
And Chris Ashton. I mean, I think that must have been the oldest backline I think in the Premiership history.
Really?
What they've never seen. It's particularly unreal, but quality backline, and age is only a number, and they delivered fair play to them. I love the post match interview. I thought it was very heartfelt, and whether. I don't know him personally, but I genuinely like those emotional outbursts. Now, my vote would go to Abu Dhabi, who's the back row for Bordeaux, who have beaten Clermont on the weekend. But there's a cute little story that Christophe Furios, the big cast Oyonnax coach with a big old mouth on him, got sacked by Bordeaux and got picked up by Clermont, who themselves sacked John O'Gibbs. And so he was going back to his old club, right? And during the game, all the speeches were, it's not about me, it's not about me, it's not about me. And Abu Dhabi, who's a proper tough back rower, Courtney Lawes, but a bit shorter. Yeah. Like you don't want to play him. He's that ningly tough old guy.
Big goal dude. Yeah.
And nobody says anything about him. And as he's leaving the field, getting subbed off 50th minute, he turns left and he gives a big old hug to Christophe Furios, who's the coach of the opposition team, right? So there was a bit of and after the game, he's like, well, when I saw my coach, he said that when I saw my coach on the opposition bench, I didn't want to. I could not do it. So it's cute to say when it's all about the rivalry. We're going to kill each other, this and that.
Yeah.
Look, it's my coach. It's his mate. They spent the last 4 years together. He actually owes him one, he said, because he got them to start in top 14. I just thought it was a cute, heartfelt human
I love
moment.
that as well, because again, that just always goes through the fact that you people mark you down as mindless competitors, but there's always a bit of like emotion. That's the beauty of sport. There's always a subplot or.
And he said during the week, "Oh no, it's emotions are out." And after the game, he said, "Well, the emotions were completely there, mate. You can fool yourself."
Yeah.
And as soon as we got there and we saw him on the other side, and the crowd was there, of course the blood is pumping and the emotions are there.
Well, lads, I think I've got to decide, because, you know, while Domino's wants to send out pizzas, they haven't got a load of £50 notes to hand out, so I've got to choose out of the three of us. Do you know what, Ben? I really, really liked your story, and I think that's a great little aside. But I'm going to go with Mike Brown purely because to be out of the game, as you said, for 11 months, and for him to do the post-match interview, and Mike Brown is quite a reserved guy, and famously he's sort of very much hated by the Welsh media and the Welsh fans, because I think he gave an interview post-game once during the Six Nations and was pretty, emotionless, didn't really want to play, looked bitterly disappointed because he's the ultimate competitor. But actually the best thing about Brownie is he is a genuinely lovely guy. He's a fantastic family man, incredible competitor, and to be completely written off, not able to find a home, all that emotion post-game, having got man of the match, came out in the interview when he literally said, age is but a number, don't let people tell you when you're finished. Because when I was near retirement, there's a saying, they say, don't let the old man in. If everyone tells you you're old, you start to believe it. Oh, you can't play at 35, 36, you're too old, you need to retire. Boys retire at this age. It's a mentality. So he's a perfect example. If you look after yourself, if you're professional, if you're fit, then the sky's the limit. So Mike Brown, there's £50 of Domino's pizzas winging their way to you. So keep an eye out for your DMs. Now, lucky for all of us, Domino's are offering the price slice deal at the moment, lads. The price slice deal. £8 for a small, £10 for a medium, and £12 for a large. Now, make sure you get your orders in while you watch the rugby this weekend. Congratulations, Mike Brown. You are our dough baller of the week. As you lot have seen, we've been running our Six Nations Predictor game. We love how many of you have joined in with Mystic Mike's predictions in partnership with our friends from City Index, one of the leading providers of tax-free spread betting across thousands of financial markets. Now, Tinds has made his picks for Ireland versus Italy, Wales versus England, and France versus Scotland. Italy versus Ireland. Italian lock Federico Russo has won more lineouts than any other player in the tournament, 15, but Italy have conceded the most scrum penalties, 5. World number ones Ireland ended France's 14-game winning streak in round 2 of the Six Nations, but only England, 29, and Italy, 28, have had more handling errors than Ireland, 27, in the competition. He has gone for Ireland by 27 points. What are you lads feeling that?
I don't like the idea of 27 points. I feel it's a bit much, a bit harsh, but it might be the brutal reality.
What are you saying?
Could be.
Yeah, it could be. Davies slams crap Italy. Wales versus England. Wales have made more dominant tackles than any team in the Six Nations, 30, but are a fraction away from their lowest ever World Rugby ranking of 10th, 0.34 points above Japan. England have conceded fewer penalties than any other team, 17, whilst Wales have conceded the most, 32. But England have the worst tackle success rate in the competition, 75.7% made, 24.3% missed. Tinds has gone for England by 12.
12.
12,
but
come on, mate.
No, I disagree.
Davies disagrees, a member of the royal family. Won't be invited to coronation. Devolution is the answer, says Davies. Right, yeah, so you think he's tending to take the piss on that one, yeah?
Yeah, he's having a right laugh here, I gotta say.
So what are you going to say, and what would you go for?
Wales by 2.
Wales by 2?
Yeah.
I'll go England by 6.
England by
12
6.
is a lot.
Okay, France versus Scotland. France have broken the most tackles in the competition with 75, which is 16 more than second place Scotland. But France spent less than a minute in Ireland's 22 in round 2 of the Six Nations. Scotland are the only team yet to concede an offside penalty in the competition. But Finn Russell has conceded the joint highest number of turnovers in the Six Nations, 5. Damien Penaud has also conceded 5. Interested to get your view on this. Mystic Mike has gone for France by 5.
Yeah, I would have gone France by 6 actually in my mind. I think it's a fair assessment by 5. Yeah. Scotland will probably give them a run for their money. There going to be no hiding, and it'll be a tough game. Yeah, I think it's pretty fair.
What are you, Foxy?
Yeah, I think it's fair. Like you might push it to about 9, but yeah, I'll take 5.
Well, listen, we need to give a quick shout out to the top performer from round 2, David McIntosh. Grand Dave, who was bang on in the score difference between Ireland and France with 13. Remember, if you haven't signed up yet, you can still join the fun, with also being for a chance to get a shout out on the pod. Head over to superbrew.com/GBR to get involved. And if you're an Oars, this is your perfect opportunity to become part of the team. I mean, I'm obviously not part of the Norse team. I'm too cool for that. Don't forget, we have a sister show, which is utterly incredible, The Good, The Scares and The Rugby, in partnership with Vodafone. If you missed last week's episode, make sure you go back and listen. The girls had Scottish referee Holly Davidson on the show, and it is a proper good one. And here's something a little bit different.
Join me, Kat Jarman, archaeologist and author.
And me, Richard Coles, writer and broadcaster.
And me, Charles Spencer, historian and broadcaster.
For our new podcast, The Rabbit Hole Detectives, where we go into the history of stuff, just pretty much anything you can possibly think of.
You name it. We got a London Bridge in the Viking.
Yeah, we've had that. We've had the eggs.
Chewing gum, jet lag.
Hangover cures.
Grand Tour.
Fertiliser and the
Fabulous, that was quite fun. I love that.
Burial customs. Was
Yes.
Paper clips.
Seaside towns.
Dukits or dovecotes. Dukits in Scotland.
Really?
Is it? They're called dukits in Scotland, yeah, but it's the same thing, isn't it? Yeah. I like your one on the tie.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
Well, then you're going to love my one on the umbrella.
I'm looking forward to that.
You can listen to The Rabbit Hole Detectives.
From the 22nd of February.
Wherever you get your podcasts.
Very clever people, Richard Coles, Charles Spencer and Kat Jarman, talking about interesting things. A new history podcast from Folding Pocket called The Rabbit Hole Detectives, made by our old producer. If you remember, producer Si, head of the Communist Party of Manchester, a man only ever seen in double denim with his ashtray blonde lid. He's absolutely smashed it with this one. A podcast full of random facts from all around the world. I have a random fact about him. His dress sense is appalling. Don't forget to subscribe to our Lock-In, which is our separate show, right? We had to explain on social media to someone again who said that we would become commercial animals. We've always been commercial animals, but we continue to give this to you lot for free. However, we have a side project called GBR Lock-In, which these two keynotes are going to be on this week. It's behind a paywall. Yes, you have to pay for it, but it's for the proper fans and the absolute keynotes. I won't tell you what we're going to talk about because it's a surprise, but we're going to lift the lid on a few interesting topics. So make sure you head over to Apple to check that out. Don't forget, we have a merchandise range, some incredible gears available online, hats, caps, T-shirts, hoodies, so you can join the gang. GBR is produced by Shira Kilgannon. GBR is a Folding Pocket production.